Cohen admits to essentially stealing $60,000 from the Trump organization. U.S. attorney and a Fox News contributor. So the goal of the prosecution in the minutes ahead, Andy, is going to be to try to rehabilitate their star witness who got outed as stealing $60,000 from his employer after acknowledging a litany of lies on the stand. Can he be rehabilitated?
No, John. The reason that this case is here is because in my old office down the street, the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York, they looked very hard at this case, and they realized that you can't make a case built on Michael Cohen. So they passed it up. Cy Vance passed it up. Bragg himself in 2022 shut this investigation down. So anyone who looks at this with an objective eye as a professional law enforcement person doesn't take the case, not because of politics, but because you can't prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt based on a witness like this. And the simple fact of the matter is they've tried to spin a big illusion about how he's super corroborated. The fact is that essential parts of this case are supported only by his testimony and nothing else.
Andy, you sent an email out earlier, and it sounds almost like you're just in disbelief as to where the prosecution has gone here.
Yep. Well, I am. I'm more in disbelief, Sandra, at the judge, frankly, because I think it's outrageous that there hasn't been a shred of evidence that Trump was even thinking about the campaign finance laws, much less, and this is what they'd have to show, that he willfully violated them. Willfulness is the highest scienter or criminal intent element in the criminal law. You basically have to show that somebody was thinking about the law, knew he had a legal obligation, and intentionally flouted it. And I don't think there's any evidence in the case that Trump was even thinking about the campaign laws. And the judge has let in that Michael Cohen pled guilty to 2 campaign finance violations, which is not, as a matter of law, admissible evidence against Trump. So they're trying to convict him of something they can't even prove that he was thinking about based on somebody else's plea of guilty that shouldn't have come in front of the jury. It's really unbelievable.
So let me roll off of a point that you just made and come back to what we talked to Alina Habba and Carrie Urban about. You mentioned guilt beyond reasonable doubt. That this isn't some like backwoods courtroom where there's a feud going on between 2 neighbors and did one person steal somebody's car or whatever. This is the former president of the United States. The very first time a former president of the United States has ever been hauled into court. And you talk about guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Most people don't even know what this case is really about. Why would they ever do this unless you have a slam dunk case? Why would you ever go out on this precipice?
John, I think it's because things have changed culturally. It's more of a cultural thing than a legal thing. And let me explain what I mean by that. When I was a young prosecutor here in the 1980s, if you had someone like Bragg or Letitia James who ran for office. In the federal system, they're appointed offices. In the state system, they're elected offices. If you ran to be the DA or the Attorney General saying, if you elect me, I will use the powers of our office or my office against our political enemies, that would have been disqualifying in the 1980s. Now, they win in a landslide in Manhattan and in New York. So I think this is very politically motivated, but they do feel like they're playing with the House money because this is what people voted for here.
So, Leo, when we look at Michael Cohen, liar, perjurer, tax cheat, and now thief, what are you thinking about what we heard this morning?
2 things. First, you cannot rehabilitate a liar. And more importantly, he confessed to the jury, to everyone in the country, that he committed a crime, a new crime. We learned that he committed the crime of stealing. He's a criminal on the witness stand, and there's no way he could be repaired as far as being rehabilitated.
To this question about whether or not the former president, Leo, great to have you on set here in New York, whether or not he will testify, I'll get your legal take on whether that is a good idea or not after we rewind to the former president himself back in April saying that he would. Listen.
You plan to testify in your trial in New York?
Yeah, I would testify, absolutely. I'm testifying. I tell the truth. I mean, all I can do is tell the truth.
So that was then. We'll see what now holds. But what would you advise?
Sandra, this is easy. There's no case here. Therefore, I would tell the president, you will not testify. If I was his attorney, I would put him in a straitjacket. He would not get on that witness stand because there's no need to. There's no case.
So, Leo, back to this idea of Michael Cohen getting away with a grand total of $60,000 from the Trump organization that he put into his pocket. Should Alvin Bragg not pursue that in some way, shape, or form, or has the statute of limitations run on that particular alleged crime?
Alvin Bragg has a fiduciary duty and an ethical duty to pursue if charges are possible. And you know what, John? I think there should be an evidentiary hearing outside the presence of the jury where the judge asked the prosecution, were you aware of this? Did he confess this to you? Because this is a serious crime. A crime admission was made today on the witness stand when you raise your hand to take an oath. So Alvin Bragg has an ethical obligation and the judge has an ethical obligation to find out how much the prosecution knew.
Leo, you said as you sat down here that you can't even look at this trial through a legal lens. This is all politics. And it leaves us wondering what the American public is thinking. We can lean on our Fox News polling. This was released last Wednesday on voters and whether they think the former president's being treated fairly by the legal system here. And there's a remarkable change happening, albeit a slow one. But right now, the number of respondents who say that he's being treated fairly, it's gone down 4 points since October. It's gone up as far as those who believe he's been treated unfairly, 3 points since then. So as this drags on, is this better and better for the former president as he's campaigning for another term?
Absolutely, Sandra. I want to be clear. I have 35 years as a lawyer. I've been a trial lawyer. There's no evidence here. And you look at the pattern in practice of all these charges being thrown at President Trump. What he's facing here, almost, 34 felony charges? And the case has holes in it. It's all politics. If anyone tells you otherwise, they're not a lawyer. They're just not a lawyer. And even our colleagues on the other channels, they have acknowledged this is a weak case. And the judge, again, has an ethical duty to dismiss this case before it goes to the jury.
So if you were on the defense side, would you call any more witnesses? And if you were to call witnesses, who would they be? Would you call Robert Costello? I know the defense wants this FEC official to testify about what's a campaign expenditure versus what is a campaign contribution.
Yeah, so let me be very clear about that. That's a great question. You need an expert here. I want to be clear also, the judge is not expert on campaign law. Let the expert testify. If you want to limit his instruction, give the jury a limiting instruction. But the jury needs to know what is a campaign finance. They need to hear from an expert. The judge is not expert on federal campaign finance law. He knows that, and I think he's intimidated by an expert on election law. That's the only person I would call to testify as a defense witness.
All right.
And everybody's talking about the judge. The judge shouldn't be doing this trial. He's totally conflicted. This is the most conflicted judge probably in the history of the court system. And everyone knows what I'm talking about. Thank you very much.
Be sure to subscribe and come back to Peak. We post new tracks many times a week. And get out the vote as early as can be. We're fighting brainwashed bastards to keep our country free.
It is corrupt lawfare. It's the Biden prosecutions. And Biden, you're going to lose this election cycle.
I'm AI Donald Trump, and I approve this message. The fake news. Wake the woke. Wake up, America. It's not about the left or the right, but what is right and what is wrong. Tune into newswars.ai.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
Be sure to get out and vote early.